everyone, and welcome to Supersonic Super Monday, the last of 2023. I'm Ziva Shapiro, Content Marketing Manager at Unity, and we're here today to talk hyper-casual trends from the past year and predictions for 2024. With me are two of the most qualified people to talk about mobile games, Nadav Ashkenazy, VP and GM at Supersonic, Yaniv Haroety, Senior Publishing Manager at Supersonic. And in just the last year, they, with a whole lot of help from the Supersonic team, crossed 100 plus published games, including hits like Ridge Race and Going Balls, partnered with almost 1,000 studios from all over the world, generated 4 billion new installs and tens of millions of dollars in profit for our partner studios who published with us, invested a huge amount into the tech, R&D, and platforms, including a best-in-biz A/B testing tool, and finally made major improvements to our Crash Center marketability tool and level analytics, so our partners can really check their game stability, prototype, and visualize in-game performance easily and readily. So we have a lot to cover today. In this wrap-up, we'll be covering the current state of the market, the top trends of the last year, the rise of hybrid casual, and of course, predictions for 2024. As always, we're going to go into a live Q&A afterwards, so remember to pop your questions in the Q&A field or chat to get them answered live. So let's get right into it. I actually want to start a little with the icebreaker to loosen us up a little bit. New Year's Eve is around the corner, so I was wondering if you guys had any New Year's resolutions that are non-hyper-casual related.
Non-hyper-casual? Oh, I have one. I have two daughters, and they already master hyper-casual runners. Tom and Ran is easy, but I think this year they're ready to progress into the next layer of gaming, and console, Sony, and deeper games, so it's definitely going to be a big focus for us this year.
Amazing. Got to start them young.
Yeah.
I would try to focus a little bit on the things beside gaming, develop new hobbies, exercise more, do more yoga, self-care.
Amazing. Yeah. Cool. So let's kick things off with a look at the current state of the mobile market in 2023. So where are we? How has the landscape evolved this past year?
So I think that, again, we are looking at many different points of data, right? From the Unity perspective, from the mediation network, and of course, from Supersonic perspective. And I think that overall we can say that this year wasn't that easy, pretty similar to last year. I think for the entire gaming and beyond spaces. But we did notice few things that we asked ourselves a year ago, and I think that they are important to mention. So first of all, hyper-casual remained at about the same size. So it's not back to growth after the drop we had following the end of COVID and the financial tightening, etc. So we didn't see any recovery on the hyper-casual. On the other hand, we don't see it dropping more. And we can say that from the Supersonic perspective, we did find several big success in hyper-casual, pure hyper-casual games this year. And the last one was Build the Queen, but we have the entire year, every quarter, at least one or two very strong hyper-casual games that were launched, scaled, and made good profits. So I think that hyper-casual is about the same place as it was a year ago. And I think that the recovery of that really depends on the entire macroeconomic, which we again discussed a year ago, and not a lot changed in that aspect. I do think that hybrid casual gained a little bit more confident, because when we look at hybrid casual a year ago, it was in its very early days. And I think this year, more games found success, which brings the confidence level a bit higher. It's still young, right? There are still only few games that made it in this business model. And I think we will touch hybrid casual a lot today, because I think we learned many important sessions in the past year. And I think that casual was about the same status of more stagnating and finding its way in this challenging environment. And I think that this is how they looked at the total. So not huge recovery for market condition. On the other hand, we didn't see continuous drop in numbers like we saw toward the end of 2023. And we are all looking forward to next year to see what's going to change, and we'll share soon.
Awesome. So within the hyper casual and hybrid casual space, what are some top genre trends that you saw emerge this year?
I think runner remained very strong, as they always were. I think they evolved a little bit this year. We saw some deeper runner, kind of going into hybrid runner, we can call them. So they remain in the top charts due to their amazing marketability. I think puzzles as well were one of the strongest one we saw, both in terms of hyper casual simple puzzle and the deeper hybrid casual puzzles. As long as they can monetize within the purchases, I think they are bringing huge value and huge profit. And last one, I would say idle games, classic idle or idle arcade are the ones that saw very nice success. Again, the ones that managed to reach this in-app purchase depth. And idle clickers, I think, was the ones that in the idle genre that didn't work so well. But yeah, those are the top ones.
If I can add, maybe, I think that, again, when we try to analyze why, I think that under current market conditions, where CPMs are lower than before and monetization is a bit more challenging than before, then the mass appealing, like Yaniv mentioned, the strong marketability for classic hyper is key, right? If we're speaking hybrid, then casual, and we'll touch that, there are more flexibility there. But this one, we try to launch a hyper game, a pure hyper, strong marketability is a must. And every time that we try to launch on scale a bit more of a niche subgenres that do not enjoy the strong marketability. You don't have many other same genre top charts that you can buy users from, etc. We saw that from one end, the CPI for scale is higher than a very marketable runner or a very marketable simulation game. And on the other hand, the LTV and the depth is not there enough because it's still hyper purely ad-based to support this high CPI. So this is where we found challenges. And I think that under this current market condition, it's super important to be very sharp to understand what works and what doesn't work, and to aim into the right area so you won't waste your energy, time, and money on something that has very, very low likelihood to succeed. So double down on what Yaniv said. We can say that for us at least, we've launched, by the way, 20 games, 20 hyper-casual games during 2023. And I think that the strongest ones that generated highest revenue, installs, profits were runner and simulation. Is like where we found a good and great success this year.
Cool. So kind of going off of needing to be sharp and kind of current with what works in the games, creatives are really important. So I wanted to ask, like, what creative strategies have proven to be the most successful in 2023, if you guys have seen anything like that.
Yeah, so again, I think just like Nadav said, everything regarding the marketability still remain as the core focus in order to reach this mass audience and appeal to everybody. So in terms of creative, it still needs to be reaching to the mass. It still needs to be very trendy and simple. The players that watch the ad, they need to understand the gameplay. They need to be very, very clear at what the game is all about. That's why they're gonna actually download and play it. So again, the creative strategy remained the same. We want to scale up the game to as many users as possible. So you must remain as marketable as possible.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. We're going to dive into this a little more, but for right now, how has technology had an influence on perpetual mobile gaming this year?
So I think that, again, we can connect it to the previous question about creatives. I think that the core remain the same, meaning finding a strong creative that is able to move the needle in terms of conversion remain the same. What we did see this year is that actually, once you find a good core, then the right methodology using the right tools, for instance, we're using AI to build many different layers of the creative, from the background to many parts of it, for icons, etc. We're using Luna in order to build playable ads faster. So I think that once you find a strong core, then with the right tools and the right experience, it's faster to build huge variety of creatives with different backgrounds, with different characters, with different elements. And each one of these has the potential to increase the scale even further. So I think that there was progress in the creative, mainly on the production side, in how fast you can build diversity and big amount of creatives. The core remained the same. While games got a bit deeper, we see it in the creative side at least, the core is still what is winning. And if you find this great core and this marketable core, then it's easier to double down and build several creatives that can improve your marketability and potential install significantly.
Cool. And so you kind of just touched on this, but kind of to go back to the impact of AI, we know that it's really important from ideation to creatives. So what are the effects of the developments in AI for developers and publishers?
I think from what I see from my studios, they're using a lot of AI for ideation. You can describe a genre or a game that you know that works and get a lot of ideas from the output of the AI. They're using a lot for in-app development, like the development of the game in terms of asset generation and icons and everything. So this is something that, it's going to grow even more, but it's already pretty significant.
Yeah. On the creative side, we also see it definitely present in many, many different layers, from assets to even generate millions of icons that you can test and see which has the best CVR. We do start to see the second generation of AI that actually can generate the video itself. So it's not only the assets that you can then use and produce the right videos, but now it's a tool that generates many, many videos and helps you to find the right call, which you can double down on afterward. So we see that. We see it in many cases in gaming and content generation. I think that content generation is going to go even further next year. It's not today, it's mainly on the assets generation, similar to the creative world. But I think there are more places it can and should evolve to, from balancing and making sure the progression is in the right way. We are on it with the other parts of Unity to build the best tools that can help developer to build faster and find the success.
Oh, and speaking actually of evolving, another topic that has been kind of on the rise right now is hybrid casual. So what factors do you guys think helped kind of contribute to this rise?
So I think that it's clear that at least at the beginning, or the main reason this start to evolve is that difficulties that hyper casual saw with the decrease in CPMs, and many games and developers said, okay, we need a higher LTV in order to be able to be competitive and to generate profits. And then hybrid joined the party with combining the best of the two worlds, right? Taking the mass appealing, strong marketability from the hyper casual side and bringing the depth and LTV with a mixture of advertising and IAP monetization, etc. on the other side. So I think that the reason why it's here is good. I do think that we learned a lot. I don't know, you want to dive deep into this now?
Yeah.
Like everything. Okay. So I think it's important because when I said earlier that it's important to be sharp on the direction that you choose in the beginning, I think that there are a few things that we learned this year. First of all, there is still room for new success on the hyper and on the hybrid. So I wouldn't say that any of these areas is blocked, hyper casual is dead, or there is no room in hybrid. So every studio can pick between these two worlds. But I do think that once you want to pick the right type of game that you are building. So if you pick hyper, you probably should focus on more of the runners, more of the simulations game that have the potential to have strong marketability. Because if you pick hyper and then you take a different subgenre without the strong marketability, you're probably going to waste a year and find no success. And if you pick hybrid, it's important to pick areas that can allow more depth in the game. But on top of not only that, I think that also the studio, the type of studio, and the process are crucial as well. And I will elaborate a bit more. I think that someone that goes into the hybrid direction needs to make sure that he has the size, patience, experience to actually build a hybrid game. We know that again, on average, at least for Supersonic, I think this year, hyper casual games from the very first test until being published and generating scale and profit was about 6 months, right? Even in some cases more than that. It's longer than what it used to be a year or 2 years ago, right? Because even pure hyper casual requires more depth today versus 2 years ago when you could have 100 levels, 0 meta, and still make a lot of profits. Today, even a pure hyper-casual game requires more content, meta, loops, etc.
And you think that's also because in line of the hybrid?
For sure, it's in line because CPMs went down and you are making less revenue per impression. And now, if in the past 20 impressions would be enough to be ROI positive, today I need 30 impressions. In order to jump from this 20 to 30, you need players to play more time and retain more in your game. But what I said, that besides being sharp on picking the right subgenre per area, I think it's important, as I said, is to make sure that the studio understand what he gets into and believe that he has the skills. Because, for instance, a bad decision would be for a very, let's say, a studio that doesn't have the size, the patience, and the experience to build a hybrid game, to continue with the prototype with a higher CPI, and then to try to build a hybrid game. And you need to know what you do in order to build a hybrid game, because it's more complicated and it takes longer and it needs more financing and it requires stronger retention and playtime numbers. So to go in this direction would be a wrong decision. So each studio needs to understand, first of all, am I fit more a hyper world or hybrid world? Do I understand what a hybrid game would require? If yes, then go in this direction. And the third thing that I said is the process. So you need to make sure you pick the right subgenre. You need to make sure that you understand what the process is going to be, and you have the size, experience, and financing to go through it. And the third thing is how to do it, because I think that one of the things that we understood is that the right way to build a hybrid game is to start with the same process as Hyper, to go through the marketability, at least for Supersonic, to go through our marketability to make sure that they have mass appealing just like Hyper. Do not compromise on the marketability already in day zero and start with a $1.5 CPI, because then the LTV goal is going to be very, very high and almost impossible for a student that doesn't have the tools. Make sure the game can find success on the initial stage, even with ads, to make sure the core gameplay, the core ROI numbers, so it's not only gameplay, it's also the unit economics between the CPI and the LTV has strong core. And once you see it, it's easier to double down on hybrid, to add IAP layers, to add more content, to add more meta, to add more loops. I think one of the great examples that we have is Family Life, by the way, a game that we've launched about a month and a half ago. And it was on the pure hyper-casual process, but we saw that the retention was strong, the engagement with the reward video are strong, and the in-app purchase share of voice is about 30% of the revenue. Without trying to build a hybrid game, just the core hyper-casual game, we start to launch it, we see that we are making money and profits with the hyper-casual version, and then it gives us a much more confident to invest another couple of months to take it into the next level, to understand what's happening with the game, to finance this entire process. So I think that to follow this process is allow more small developers to get more certainty and to improve the likelihood to succeed, versus ignoring the hyper-casual funnel at all and try just from the beginning to build a very deep and complex game.
So the shift is really possible. It just takes a lot of planning ahead, more time, more resources, and just kind of, okay,
Sure.
Cool. So also, in general, I think those were really great tips in terms of trying to segue into the hybrid space. Do you guys have tips in general about how to succeed in 2024?
I think it remains the same, as you need to look at something that works. You should always have a reference for something that you know is working, either in terms of marketability or in terms of engagement. You need to always play the games in the top charts, understand what works and understand why it works. Try to think why this game is in the top charts. Okay, so if it's a very marketable game, okay, so let's see how I can use this theme or this mechanic and try to utilize it to my game. Try to take inspiration for few games. Always try to have, whatever you do, try to have a reference that works. Once in a blue moon, we see a game that succeeds out of nowhere, that it's something unique. But most of the game we see in the top charts they have reference. You can always say, oh, I played this, something similar. So try to take it, make it your own, try to kind of mix few ingredients in the same pot and come up with something that will look different enough, but will still keep the users engaged and have good marketability.
So like stick to what you know, but give it a little twist.
Basically, yeah.
Cool. Can you guys share some teasers about what Supersonic has in store for 2024?
Yes. So first of all, and I think this question rises every year. So we said it a year ago, and we're saying it today as well. We're going to launch probably another at least 20 hyper casual games next year as well. We don't believe that hyper casual is dead. We see there is demand from users to play hyper casual games. We see that there are very good successes on the hyper casual world. So we're going to keep this track active and strong as we did in the past 4 years. And I'm sure we'll find many more super successful, super profitable hyper casual games next year as well. And today we have the strongest tools in order to actually be very efficient and accurate on building your next hyper casual game. And just like the rest of the market, we are investing on deeper games as well, both from tools perspective. So whoever is working with Supersonic or published a game with Supersonic already knows the level of tools we have on the hyper casual world. We're adding many more tools that allows stronger depth and IP monetization and live ops management and many layers of that. We're probably going to launch on top of the 20 hyper casual games, few hybrid casual. They're probably going to start as a initial hyper version that evolves into hybrid. We're probably going to hybridize few of our top successful games already today. And we're also looking at deeper games, even leaning into the casual world that from the beginning offers very strong retention with a very dominant in-app purchase monetization. And I'm sure we will see one of these as well next year. But in general, Supersonic inspires to publish any game, whether it's hyper, hybrid, casual. We want to bring the tools and the right process and, of course, know-how and experience to the table in order to help any developer out there to make it happen.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so now to answer some of the questions you guys have been asking us throughout the session, let's start with, are competitions like Super Winter going to continue in 2024?
So first of all, yes, we are going to continue with competitions next year. We are going to debrief this competition probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks because today was the last day of testing. And we probably, as we do every year, we want to sharpen our strategy about what the competitions want to achieve because we use these competitions in order to guide and help our creators to aim for the right places. So I'm confident we'll see at least 2 more competitions next year, and we still have a question mark about what and how they are going to be, because we want to use them to help you to look at the right areas and to have better probability to succeed.
Cool. And you kind of touched on this a little bit, but if you can dive a little bit deeper, how would someone know if they can switch their hyper casual game to hybrid casual?
So I think Nadav mentioned it. I think it's all about the core abilities and capabilities of the studio, both in terms of financial, the ability to take it to the long run and work on a game longer and deeper. Also in terms of the execution level, whether if it's a level design and difficulty curve and all of the things that really mean a lot in a hybrid game more than in a hyper. And also in terms of the game itself. So we need to start with something that works, like Nadav said. If we're just going to shoot to the moon with something that we don't know if it works and going to invest a few months in it, it's not efficient. It's probably going to end up with wasting time and money. So we need to see that it has the sprout that can actually grow and work as a hybrid game, but start it slow and try to see first that we have the marketability, we have the engagement, and using that, we can later make the game deeper and deeper.
I would add maybe 3 KPIs that you should put attention. First of all, as Yaniv said, it should start as other tests you've been running with Supersonic, meaning that upload the game to the platform, run the marketability test, understand the marketability power. As you know, every game that is being tested and uploaded into our platform is being tested on several UA channels, from Google to Facebook to Unity to Ironsource. Then it gets a score from 1 to 5. with a certainty rate that improves, and creative win rate. We have many, many different elements, and eventually we give this prototype a score, how marketable we believe it is, and what is the expectation for CPI for scale. So start the same way, and make sure that you are continuing to the next stage only if you believe that it fits your general intention, right? If you are building a hyper-casual game, hyper-casual runner, hyper-casual simulation, make sure you get 4 or 5, right? If you're a studio that find himself fit for hyper-casual and you get a marketability score of 2, it will be a waste of time to try and build hyper-casual version out of a prototype with marketability 2. But make sure that you have this fit runner simulation with 5 or 4. If you are more of a hybrid casual studio, you can go with 3, or in some cases 2, depends on the subgenres and the skills and how big monetization is going to be, and then start building the game, as Yaniv mentioned, the core, the different elements that we are building in the game. And then I would follow 3 main KPIs. One, of course, retention, right? We know how important is it. When we're thinking about IAP monetization, it gets even bigger weight versus playtime, which when you are mainly monetizing with ads, playtime is as important as retention because it's the opportunities to show ads. On IP is a bit of a different. So make sure that you're D1 and D7, right? I think that you are looking for this at least 10% D7 to say, okay, I have here a sign that this core gameplay has the potential to be deeper because we need to push the retention further. So this is one. Number 2 is engagement with RV. So when we say monetize with ads, there is a difference between monetizing with interstitial, which is a system-initiated ad unit that the game just forced the user to watch, or RV, where the user decides and decides to watch a video in order to get something. Games with higher rate for rewarded video probably has stronger call for hybrid version of the game versus hyper-casual version of the game, because this means that the user has more reasons to engage with the economy and the meta and the different loops of the game. So I said retention, I said RV engagement, and I would say also IAP conversion. Because even for hyper casual, you can always add, and you should add a basic store, remove ads, maybe a few items that you can sell there, and then see how well it converts. Whether it's 1% of your revenue or 25% of the revenue of a very, very, very basic IAP monetization. If it's on the higher rate, I think it's another good sign for the hybrid potential. So I think this is 3 signs that you need to follow. If you don't see any of them, retention is not strong, reward video engagement is not strong, IAP is not strong, I'm not sure it's the right investment of time and money to try to move from the hyper into the hybrid version of this specific game.
So while like hyper casual games can differ, those still are the 3 kinds of core KPIs that you should look out for to see if your hybrid can be successful. Yeah. Okay, awesome. And what are some of the Supersonic hyper casual games that topped the charts this year, and why do you guys think they were so successful?
I would say that in the last quarter, like Nadav said, we published Build the Queen, which as we all know, it's a classic gate runners. It's using a theme of kind of a female or realistic kind of a theme that we know is working, we know is appealing. So this was a huge success in the top charts, mainly because of, again, a great marketability and a runner that involves some deeper elements, some addition mechanics that made the retention and the playtime a little bit more than what we usually see in runner. So this one was, again, in the top charts. We mentioned also family life. Again, started as a kind of I would say simulation game, again with great marketability that also took into this idle mechanic into it. We know that idle have long engagement and high retention, so we saw it, and the developer kind of squeeze it, and it turned up to be a great game with IAP. So again, those are 2 hyper casual games that made a huge success for us in the last month.
By the way, if we double down on that and not only looking on the new launches, we'll see on the top charts in terms of revenue and installs for Supersonic, Also Tournament Run, which is also a gate runner, just like Build a Queen that Yaniv mentioned. We will see Slow-Mo Run, which we did launch earlier this year, which is a simulation game that also doing very, very well. And we always have our two golden games, Bridge Race and Going Balls, that are just in the top 20 for 3 years already. It's a mix of a magic with again, very strong core, strong marketability. We do see, by the way, that late retention, very late retention, is also a factor for the long-term success of the game. So if you want this game to succeed for 2 years or 3 years, we see that games that have strong late retention, I speak about on a late retention, we don't even count it on days, we count it on weeks. So we are looking at 26 weeks retention. How many users come back on the 26 week after the launch, etc. We see that games that users are coming, for instance, Going Balls, and we have a few others, even 6 months after, have a stronger core to remain in the top charts for years. Which is, again, it's a mixture of content, execution, live ops, and strong core on the marketability and retention playtime factors.
Cool. We also have a question here, because I know that we mentioned that it might take time and resources to kind of build these games out. So what do you think the best focus for solo indie developers is to find success?
So like I mentioned at the start, I think, again, if you're a solo developer just starting now, you should stick to hyper casual, to more simple games, and just look at the top charts and see what works. Try to understand why this game is working. Try to take it and shift it a little bit to either a different theme or a different kind of a core mechanic, but use those simple and clear goals, use those gates in runners, use those simulation narrative games. Try to find out something that nobody did before, or somebody did but not good enough, and try to excel in that. That would be the best use of your time.
Cool. And then in terms of, let's shift it a little bit in terms of monetizing. Someone's asking if they should implement ads between levels or even some rewarded video for their first test.
I think that monetization should come a bit after. So we always focus, at least the beginning, the first 2 months, I would say, if you finish a different number, on building strong retention, strong playtime. We don't care about monetization. We don't care about interstitial. Rewarded video, we can potentially add in an earlier phase if you want to see engagement, etc., because it doesn't interrupt with the main gameplay. But interstitial will leave to a bit later phase. Once the game is solid and the core is strong, then we usually add our monetization team into our Slack channel that is working together on this game, and they will do all the testing on that sense. They will test on an A/B test, because you mentioned our A/B testing tool, so we launched a new A/B testing tool 2 months ago, probably the best in the market. I don't think that there is any other tool with this level of depth and accuracy in the market. So our monetization team will A/B test and check mid-level versus end of level, before end of level screen, after 20 seconds, 40 seconds, what is the interval, what is the frequency. These are things that shouldn't worry the creator. In the developer-publisher partnership, we want to support you with this, because again, in my eyes, it's not that interesting for a developer. You need to build the best and most interesting game. Let our tools and monetization team to fine-tune and find when is the right timing to show interstitial that is maximizing the day 30 LTV. Don't waste your energy and thinking about it. Make sure we have strong core retention playtime numbers, and we promise that we will add the strongest, the most sophisticated elements of ad monetization later, after we get to the right KPIs in terms of engagement.
So basically, we've got you covered.
Yes.
Awesome. And then there's another one here. So we talked about how runners are still really popular. And even one of our games that we published is a runner game, and that's really popular, Built a Queen. So why do you think that, especially nowadays, there's still the magic? How can you add to runners to kind of attract new users and make it more special?
I think it's the magic question. It's very hard to kind of say what is working and why this is working. I mean, we do know that the mechanic works. We know that it's very simple and appealing to players that watch the ad. Gate runners is always something that can give you the feeling of, oh, I missed this one. Oh, why did he play so bad? I would do it better. So it's very, very clear. And even myself, after playing thousands of runners, I see an ad and I sometimes I download it just to see how it will look when I play it better. So we know this is work. It's very hard to say what theme will be the next one, because again, we've seen it all, but we didn't see it all. So again, it's a combination of few magic tricks. Try to find, I think the key here is the visual change. Those gate runners, they need to be a very satisfying visual change. We saw it in Tournament Run. The character is really shifting very satisfyingly. We saw it in Build the Queen. The ads in Build the Queens are very like weird. You get a tall queen with a muscular body. Those are things that catches the eye. So always try to have this visual change, and yeah, that's it. Just try and error. Also, one of the advantages of runner, it can be very quick to develop. Once you have the infrastructure for a gate runner, you can just replace the asset later on and try multiple things until you find something that works.
So that'd also be a good genre to kind of go into in terms of like the solo indie developers to start with.
For sure.
I can add, by the way, that I think that it boils down to also players' preferences. I think that, again, the pure hyper-casual games are a short, natural break in life, right? You have like 2 minutes between emails when you're in a bus station, when you just don't want to think about anything and play. While idle and puzzles can require more attention, these gate runners are like just 2 minutes of fun, pure fun. They are very simple to catch, very simple to understand. They are always very, very fast and nice brain freeze from life, brain break from life. And I think this is what makes them so popular for so long, for years already. This simple core on the marketability, on the actual playing experience, make them unique entertainment of a very short break period of time.
Awesome. A couple more. Here there's, what are the minimum features a game should have to go from design to development?
We kind of touched on it a little bit. Yeah, I think for us, when we test a game, especially a hyper-casual game, we aim to have around 15 minutes of gameplay, which in a runner or in a simple hyper-casual would be like, I don't know, 20, 30 levels, depending on the length of each level. So this is what we want to see. Of course, the game needs to have some sort of more than one trick, I would call it. Have a couple of changes in the gameplay, but this is mainly what we expect to test on the first test. About 15 minutes of gameplay. 15 minutes of gameplay.
And I would add like a marketability power, which is eventually we are here to make good profit for both sides, right? We want to make sure that once we buy 10 million users, the CPI is going to be X, and that is going to be X plus. And I think that, again, we invested a lot in our marketability tool, and the ability to predict the marketability power of a very, very lean prototype based on very, very accurate and dedicated amount of traffic. And I think that eventually you put it on the platform, you see the marketability power, you see the initial engagement, as Yaniv mentioned, retention, playtime, minutes of gameplay that average user is playing, and you understand whether you believe that this is a reasonable goal to achieve or not. The LTV that you need to achieve, or the engagement you need to achieve, versus the CPI for scale, and this is what should dictate whether you should invest further and move from an MVP into a full game and try to actually go and scale it.
Okay, great. That's actually a really great transition to our last question. What exactly does getting a 5 out of 5 on the Supersonic marketability score mean? So yeah. So
it's not 5 out of 5. It's so our marketability tool is running your ad creative, in several channels, as I mentioned, Facebook, Google, IronSource, Unity. We are analyzing several components. We look at the CPI versus IPM if we are speaking about SDK networks. We look at the type of audience, gender, ages, placement, CTR, CVR. We look at how many creatives are winning. So we see whether the creative win rate is 2% or 50%, very, very different. And based on the experience of 100 published game and about thousands of prototype tested, we're able to do it quite well. We try to predict what will be the CPI for scale. 5 is a game that probably you can scale with a 40-cent CPI, so it's so marketable. It is appealing to such a broad audience that we believe that in a couple of months when the game will be ready, with 45-cent CPI, we get millions of installs all around the world, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And this allows you, even with a limited LTV, to make great profit numbers. So this is what the 5 stands for.
And then, so this is final question to kind of go off of that. If the studio manages to crack good marketability, does Supersonic also help fine-tune the game economy?
Of course. This is exactly our job. This is where we come in. We bring the team, both the publishing manager and the game design and the monetization manager. So we have a full team that is kind of dedicated to the game, investing everything, brainstorm together, with course, with the studio, brainstorming about where we want to take the game. And of course, when we have this unpolished diamond that has 5 marketability score, we will do everything we can to increase the lifetime value of the user as much as possible, because of course, the higher the LTV, the higher the profit that both of us will get.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for being here and sharing your insights. This was really awesome. That's a wrap for our last Super Monday of 2023. And as you start to think of your next hit, we hope that these tips are really good to keep in mind and to help you along the way. And for even more insights to stay on top of our updates, don't forget to follow us on social or visit our website. And we'll see everyone at the first Super Monday of 2024. Happy holidays, and we hope you have a great new year.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.